Welcome back to Bravo Breaking News. So just as we are all coming down from the craziness that was last week's Bethenny and Rachel 3-part interview, a few Vanderpump Rules cast members are now coming to the surface, and they have a lot to say. Stassi Schroeder and Lala Kent are entering the chat, and they are here to debunk some of the rumors that Rachel set off and expose some production secrets about their time on set. So we are going to get into it all, but before I break it down, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any Bravo breaking news. So, of course, if something happens on Vanderpump Rules, the Vanderpump Rules cast members, ex-cast members included, are going to talk about it on their podcasts. And I'm here for it because this week, Lala and Stassi are dishing a lot of information about the truths and the lies and some crazy rumors that Rachel brought up on last week's interview. So let's start with Lala. On this week's Give Them Lala, she had a lot to say about the interview. First of which, she is pretty much agreeing with the general consensus of the public, saying that Bethenny exploited Rachel with this interview. Furthermore, she's basically claiming that Bethenny manipulated Rachel into kind of creating this narrative that backed up her reality reckoning lawsuit. And I kind of have to agree, if you think about it, if Rachel were to sit down on her own and talk about these things freely, I feel like a lot of these things would have been left unsaid. I feel like Bethenny has a way to kind of guide people, and maybe especially somebody like Rachel, who is easily manipulated and, controlled, as we've seen with Tom Sandoval, to maybe make her say things that maybe she wouldn't have said otherwise and maybe create some sort of narrative. So I'm kind of with Lala here. I think that a lot of what Rachel said actually came from Bethenny's mouth and not her own. Lala also kind of gives us an insight into what it's like to be on reality TV, and she admits that reality TV is not for everybody. She says it is a very intense environment, and if you are not mentally tough as fuck, in quotes, it can break you. And I think that this is kind of her way of saying that these contracts or, these NDAs that these Bravo stars are signing that are keeping them from talking about the working conditions and the, producing of the drama and everything. I think that she's just trying to say, look, being on the show is not easy. You do have to tough it out. You have to go through some tough situations, but at the end of the day, it's kind of what you're signing up for. While there are stories going around that production, made people do this and are forcing them to do this, Lala clears it up and basically says that nobody made Rachel sleep with her best friend's boyfriend. Nobody forced her to do this. Nobody, put it in her head to do it for a storyline. That was Rachel's doing all on her own. Also, from Lala's point of view, she said that it did seem like Rachel and Ariana were very close and very good friends. Stassi also backs this up, and I will get to her podcast in a minute. But I think that that is one of the many lies that Rachel said during this interview, as it is coming out more and more that Ariana and her were actually close, and it's really not a legitimate excuse for Rachel to use. Rachel also brings up this time in Vegas, the night after the girls' night in Vegas, where she hooked up with Oliver, where all the girls off camera were basically rallying around her like, good job, you made such great TV last night. Lala nips that in the bud right away and says that never happened in a million years. There was not a point where the cameras were not on us, and she's just straight up lying. And at this point, it kind of makes it hard to believe a lot of the other things that Rachel is saying when so many lies are coming out from the interview in the first place. She also talks about the equal pay request. So there is a lot of controversy around this because Rachel wanted to be paid as much as Tom and Ariana. And point blank, Lala is saying there is no way she would have been paid as much as Ariana and Tom no matter what happened. The show is paid based off of seniority. There is no way that somebody that's been on the show for 5 years is going to be paid the same as somebody that's been on the show for 10 years. Now let's talk about the Palm Springs house. So Rachel pretty much accused Lala of pulling a Kim Richards, "You stole my goddamn house," to Kyle Richards season 1, if you know, you know, about Lala stealing a house from Brock in Palm Springs. This is again totally false. Sheena and Brock already owned a house in Palm Springs. Lala bought the house next door, and Brock and Sheena were actually encouraging her to do so. Now, with the Send It to Daryl merch, yes, Lala admits that she capitalized on the moment. She sold a lot of merch, so much in fact that it helped pay for that house in Palm Springs. However, she believes that Rachel could have done the same. Rachel is putting on this, boo-hoo, feel sorry for me. I'm not making any money off of this while everybody else is capitalizing on it. Girl, Lala is saying what I have been saying. Make merch, write a book, do a paid interview. I mean, everybody else is making money off of this, and you are one of the stars of the scandal. Make money off of this. Lala even said she would have bought merch from Raquel at one point. She also confirms that Graham is not being used for a storyline like Rachel said. This is a reality show. They are filming their real lives. This whole dog adoption, story just so happened to happen while they were filming the show. So of course it is going to be included. It is going to be part of the storyline. But was it all a, master plan against Raquel to get Graham back and use it against her? No. So that is everything that Lala covered on her podcast this week. Let's move on to Stassi, who does have some interesting takes, seeing as she is no longer on the show. So Stassi kind of drops a big one on us. She reveals that she thinks that Rachel is telling the truth when it comes to the story about the FaceTime recording with Tom. So Rachel said that during the scene where they're talking in her apartment, the FaceTime recording was brought up, and Tom basically refused to film until they agreed to remove that footage. While Stassi does say that Sandoval was never offered a producer credit and that never happened, she does believe that he was able to sway the producers into not showing that footage. And she says this because she says it has happened in the past, and this blows my mind. She basically said that kind of stuff happened all the time when she was on Vanderpump Rules, that production was covering most for the men of the cast. And if the men were, to say something or do something that, didn't look good, they would tend to cover it up. And this is kind of shocking to me. I don't think this is something that Stassi would lie about. She basically is saying that she thinks that Sandoval got away with doing this. Now, whether he will still get away after all of this has come out, I don't know. I think that while Bravo is saying that this isn't true, I think that maybe there might be some sort of truth in the middle here about what really happened. And I think Stassi bringing this to light means a lot. She also confirms that Rachel and Ariana were definitely close friends and that this is just another excuse that Rachel is bringing to the table. And finally, Stassi did confirm the thing about the pay, and she shares it from personal experience. Stassi stepped away from the show for at least one season, maybe two, and when she returned, her pay was bumped down. I mean, that's just what it is. If you are at a job for a long time, you get paid more than other people that have been at that job for a short time. So she confirms that it's all about seniority and that Rachel was never going to be paid as much as Tom and Ariana. And the fact that she even tried to do that and is now using that against Bravo is basically complete bullshit. So those are the shocking truths that Lala and Stassi revealed on the podcast. I am definitely interested to hear the other cast's reaction to this. Whether Tom is going to come out and say something about the FaceTime recording, I don't know. I think at this point he needs to. So we will be here to update you guys on everything that happens regarding the Rachel interview and all of the rest of the Vanderpump Rules cast. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more Bravo breaking news.